The brand new M60 has been out for a while, but today I'm going to be telling you why it is one of the most overpowered weapons for use on PvE. It is absolutely insane how good this thing is, and it melts both the raiders, the rogues, and of course some of the bosses as well, and obviously the PMCs that are within the game, and scavs are just an afterthought when it comes to this weapon. And there's one reason why that may be, and that is because of the ammunition that you can use within the M60. And you don't even have to use the best type of ammunition that comes with the M60E6. There are a wide variety of ammos that you can use, such as M80, you have BCP FMJ, and you can also use things like M62, M61, Ultra Nozzler, blah blah blah. Primarily I've been running it with BCP FMJ just because there's so many rounds that, you know, you can quite easily use these kind of cheaper rounds to be able to dump out a load of rounds into opponents. And because the penetration on BCP FMJ is not absolutely garbage, it's not the best by any means, but level 3 penetration with a low chance on level 4, which in reality translates to a relatively high penetration chance on level 4 armor, actually works quite well. And yes, obviously if you've got the potential to be running M80, which I did at the beginning when I was first using this rounds, then yes, I would 100% recommend it. But of course you're capped at 120 rounds every so many hours, dependent on your trader limits, etc. And some people don't actually have it available. But it doesn't really matter because this weapon is crazy good whatever you use, and that's because the output of rounds with this thing is pretty low in terms of the fire rate, but because it is a automatic firing 7.62 by 51, you just melt through everything that you come up against. And remember, you've got a 100 round mag, which you can just keep dumping down range at whatever you're firing at. And it's very good for those group engagements where you're coming up against multiple people at one go, where you don't have to worry about reloading and more so just focus on your own gameplay to take them out. Now, in terms of the setup, there is not a whole lot of changes that you can do to something like an M60. So if we were to go ahead and check it out in the presets, there's a few things that you can alter about this, but primarily it's just down to however you want to play. You can see here we do have indeed got the bipod for the M60, which you can use, and you can mount the machine gun, which is kind of cool. But primarily you're relying on, you know, those somewhat decent ranges where you're slightly longer away. The weapon itself is quite long, so you do have those problems when coming into doorways where it kind of jams up against you as you're trying to get through, as opposed to being able to swing through doorways quite easily with something like an SMG. But it isn't too much of a problem, and you can get around it by just simply having to think about it during your raids, which is fine, but it is an extra thing to consider when using a weapon that is this large. The ammo boxes, there is just one ammo box that you can use, which is the assault box, the 100 round mag. You have a couple of different grips that you can use with this thing, but the best grips are the E6PG, which is what you got a tan colored, so you can run it a full tan colored M60 if you really wanted to, but for us, we're just running it with whatever we can get the best ergo with, because the ergo of this thing is diabolical. We're down at 12, and that's primarily because we're running a suppressor and of course running not the best ergo grips and stuff like that as possible, and with a scope like the Voodoo on it, your ergo just gets annihilated. You can't put on a different stock. There is no possibility of that. You've just got whatever the best stock is, which is the E6BS is what we've got on this. There's no customizable stock where you could put on a Daniel Defense or something like that. We've got ourselves on a flashlight for those close quarters engagement where you can just hit fire with a laser and obviously the tactical flashlight. And then we've got ourselves the hybrid 46, which is very good for just simply, I guess, quieting down the weapon, because it is very, very loud when you're using it without it. And then of course a Geist ring at the top, and then whatever we can do to improve the ergo. There's not a whole lot of customization, but this is the thing that I decided decided to build. I'm sure there's a better way of reducing some of the vertical recoil, as you can do with some of the other grips that you do have, but it's not too major, and really you're kind of limited with the ergo with this thing, so I just wanted the best ergo I could possibly get, or at least give it a decent amount of ergo whilst reducing the recoil somewhat, which is where we went with the SE5. But primarily a very, very fun and easy weapon to use. It is a spray, and of course if you hit the head or anything like that with the M60, because of the fact that you're using these 7.62x51 rounds, you are dealing 83 damage to the head, which is more than enough to take out any of the bosses who have 80 health to the head. Things like the goons and that sort of stuff, all it needs is one shell to the head. So it is a very, very good weapon for that sort of engagement. And I'm sure, as you're seeing in the background, we've been able to actually take out the goons on Lighthouse by staying really far back. Now, we used it as a bit of a sniper, which was the weirdest thing I've ever done. Yes, an M60 as a sniper. It's definitely not the best, but it works. I was able to take out 2 of the goons in one raid using the M60 at 670 meters. So, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't recommend it, but at the same time I was just testing out what this weapon's like. We did have to kind of zero in at like the max zeroing distance of this thing, which I think is like 350 meters, something like that, and give a decent amount of lead. But it took a while to actually get honed in, but I was kind of messing about up on top of one of the buildings, and we managed to get quite a few easy shots and kind of calibrated it up to see where you need to aim. But now we know that, I can go into new raids and be able to do that exact same thing, but with better accuracy and much quicker this time around. Of course, when it comes to the M60, it would be recommended to bring at least a sidearm or something to bring alongside you, because in those close quarters engagements, if you do find yourself getting pushed and you do end up running out of ammunition, this thing takes an ancient... well, it just takes you ages to actually reload, which is obviously going to be a problem when you've got such a big and heavy weapon and with such large magazines. You just want to be able to switch to an easier weapon and get rounds down range, which I think is where those sidearms or your secondary weapon come into play, which once again I'd highly recommend running. And yeah, I mean, the weapon itself, you can go up to people and just dump in the chest to thorax area. If you've got M80 in there, or you've got M62 or M61, if you really want to push the boat out, this thing will literally just disintegrate anyone that you see. Within a matter of a couple of seconds, everyone in the room is going to be gone. It really does feel very overpowered, and the best thing about this is, if we jump back to how much it costs right now, you can pick one up for 160k. They've come down substantially. It is absolutely crazy how cheap these weapons are, and it really is one of those that I'd highly recommend. Similar to that of when you look at something like the fully automatic MDR, the 7.62 version, you know, you have that same sort of feeling where you've got an automatic version of a 7.62 which just melts through people. But this obviously has the 100 rounders, and it feels cooler to be running around with the LMG, and although you may not have the best ergo, it definitely feels kind of cool, and you feel like a Terminator, I suppose, going through and being able to take people out. So I've really enjoyed it. I thought I'd showcase this weapon because it is a super viable weapon. It is very, very good. It is a ton of fun, and hopefully you kind of got to see that in this video. And if you like the video, make sure to like it, and of course you can subscribe down below using the subscribe button, and I will see you in the next video. I hope you have a great rest of the day. Goodbye.